Not Too Late at 58, the podcast for those of a certain age who say, yes, why not? Hello and welcome to this podcast series called Not Too Late at 58. I'm Annie Weir and I turned a lifetime dream into a reality when I was 58 by writing and publishing my first novel. So I'm living proof that it is not too late at 58, hence the name and hence my new passion to help other people of a certain age to achieve their ambitions. You don't actually need to be 58, of course, or want to write a novel. If you'd like to know more about me and Not Too Late at 58, just hop back to the first episode in the series. This episode is called Weighing Up Your Options. And so far in the series, we've thought about reasons for making a change now at this time of our lives. We've thought about what holds us back and how to learn from what didn't work out very well before. We've thought about the good things about ourselves and how we can build on them now. And in the last episode, we thought about where we are right now and what needs to happen to move us on to achieve our dream. While there is still time. Setting goals and taking actions are really important, of course, and we'll get onto that later in the series. But I think it's better to evaluate the options before you set off pursuing a goal. And the reason I say that is because when you write down your goal, in order to achieve it and give it the best chance of success, should I say, you need to be able to visualise it being achieved and visualise how you're going to achieve it. So, for example, I've always said I want to live in Malta when I retire. Timing-wise, who knows when that will be, so it's difficult to plan that one properly. I thought I knew pretty much exactly where I wanted to live, but 4 years ago when we were there, we saw that there had been a lot of development and that the area had started to lose its character and its charm, and the price of property around there has rocketed, so I probably wouldn't be able to afford it anyway. And that same year we went to Gozo, a small island off Malta, and I found a village by the sea that would do nicely, but it's quite remote. So it's no wonder that I haven't made any progress towards making it a reality. And then my sister, who was with us, said, well, why don't you take a long let and see how you like it before selling up and moving everything out here? And that's a different option to any that I'd considered before. And at first I said no outright, but then I started to consider it a bit more seriously. And then my husband said, oh, what's the healthcare like here? We need to think about that at our age. So what I thought was going to be quite a straightforward plan is all muddled, and I can't actually specify what it is exactly that I'm aiming for right now in that respect. I still have the same overall goal, the same overall dream, but I really need to evaluate some options and choose the right one before doing a detailed plan of how I'm going to achieve it. So that's enough about me. So let's start thinking about you and a couple of ways in which you can tackle evaluating your options. Let's take an example. If you have a dream of having a little tea shop by the seaside, you need to think about when you want to achieve this by, which seaside. There's a big difference between, say, Blackpool and Hamble, or indeed the west coast of Islay, where I've just visited. Are you going to buy or rent? Who's coming with you? Are you going to look for an existing business to take over or start it all from scratch? Have you got qualifications? Food hygiene certificate as a minimum, I would have thought. What experience have you got? Are you going to run it yourself? Are you going to get somebody else to run it? And those are just a few of the kind of practical questions. And what about those people who are close to you? Do they want to uproot and move to the seaside? And how will it affect your family and your friends? So one way to make a start is the simple brainstorming method. You may be familiar with this in the business context. There are rules to making this work properly. You mustn't evaluate the options as you go along. The idea with brainstorming is that you just gather as many ideas as you can, even if they seem really far-fetched or ridiculous. And the time for deciding whether they really are far-fetched or ridiculous is after leaving them at least overnight and reviewing them with fresh eyes the next day. You start by making a list of the obvious ones, the obvious options, and then keep on and try and go on till you've got about 40 ideas, preferably even 50. And don't worry about things like you can't afford it, or you haven't got time, or you don't know how, or you don't know the right people. You can either weed these out later or find ways around these barriers. And by making yourself a really long list, you probably go into the realms of fantasy, and that is fine. And you could also get other people involved in it, perhaps someone who knows something about what you intend to do, or someone who knows nothing about it, and maybe even a child, one of your children or a grandchild, who doesn't really know what sounds ridiculous, so you might get some different ideas from doing that. If you don't like writing lists, or you like to group ideas together as you go along right from the beginning, you could do a mind map with lines and bubbles flowing out in all directions. And that's quite good as well for making connections between things that you didn't think were connected before. There's a book, if you're new to mind mapping, that I recommend called The Mind Map Book by Tony and Barry Buzan, and that can help you get started. A more structured way, although it won't sound like it when I tell you, is of considering options is what I call the fried egg diagram. I believe it's a marketing model, but I don't know what its proper name is. Anyway, you draw a circle in the middle of a piece of paper, make it big enough to write in the obvious options that you've got. Then draw a wider circle around it and stretch your initial thoughts a bit. Not so much that they are impossible, inconceivable, but that they are possible, perhaps with some work or with some help. And then draw a wider circle again, perhaps with frilly edges. And in this one, make a note of what you could do if there were no barriers at all. This is the realms of fantasy again. And again, try to get as many ideas down as you can for you to go back and evaluate on another day. Now, I have got some free resource which can help you do this already drawn out. There's one on my website, not-late-at-58.com/free-stuff, or simply click on the link on this podcast page. And I'll ask for your email address and I will send you this resource over. Another thing that you could try is reverse logic. Make notes about what is definitely not possible, and then challenge yourself. Is it really not possible? What can you do to make it possible? What's the one first little step you could take to move it towards being a little bit possible? And by taking that first step, it's amazing how motivational that is and how you can move on and take more little steps, moving you towards that goal. You might even ask yourself whether you would change your goal or the focus of it if you had more money, more time, more help, if you could start from scratch, or if you were in charge. And before you finish any of these exercises, I urge you to give yourself one more chance to think of other options before you put your list away for the day. Ask yourself what else you can do, and then what else. Not, is there anything else, but what else? There must be something. Ask yourself who else might give help, support, or advice. Again, not, is there anyone else, but who else Really stretch your mind to think about who can help you, and also try how else might you do something. Just changing the words you use or the way you phrase the question can help to change your mindset and help you think positively instead of, well, frankly, letting yourself off the hook. And don't rule out anything at this stage unless it's immoral or illegal, or fattening, obviously. Earlier, I mentioned other people and how they might be affected when you embark on your new project, particularly if it's a big life project. It is a good idea at this stage of evaluating the options to consider those who have an interest in what you're planning to do, those who are just interested in what you're planning to do, and also those who have influence over what you're planning to do. In other words, or in business terms, do a stakeholder analysis. By engaging the right people and getting them on side, the changes that you're planning to make in your life will happen much more smoothly. And we'll come back to this stakeholder analysis idea later in a later podcast series. And we'll also cover it on the online course, Not Too Late at 58 Is Now the Right Time for You, and in a different way during the weekend workshop of the same name. The little tea shop by the sea would seem on the surface to be quite a risky prospect, as it may involve borrowing money or investing a lot of your savings. And also, if you're asking family to relocate with you, there may be resistance. If you're leaving children who have children behind, they may be upset about losing a babysitter, as well as a much-loved family member, of course. So are you prepared for the effect that realising your dreams might have on others if you decide to go for it? I'm not trying to put you off, far from it, but it is as well to be prepared. So when you're analysing your stakeholders, you need to be aware that some may want to even sabotage your plan. Who are you going to be moving out of a comfort zone along with yourself? How can you get them on side from the beginning? And who do you need help from? And is there anyone you need to even break away from? All your stakeholders will welcome communication and probably welcome that in different ways. For example, throwing a major family lifestyle change into the conversation over Christmas dinner may not be the best idea. But on the other hand, drip feeding news about a commercial project will put it in the public eye and maintain interest even before the project is fully formed, and that's fine. Before deciding on the exact goal that you're going to work towards, go back to your list or your mind map, take out the options you're not going to pursue, and try to whittle it down to 2 or 3 options that look right for you right now, and then do a bit of analysis. You could maybe think about each option and list the pluses and minuses. And if you're going to do this, it's a good idea to weight each option by perhaps giving them a score of 1 to 4. Definitely don't use an odd number to score each option because it's too easy to just simply go for the middle one. And sometimes a visual representation of this can be useful. And then, having decided on the one to go for, toss a coin. Call heads for I'll do it, tails for I won't do it, and see if you're pleased or disappointed by the result. If you're disappointed, think again. Sometimes it is actually better to just simply go with your gut feeling. And don't forget, you still have the option to stay just the way you are. But make sure it's an active decision to do that, or you may be left feeling disappointed later that you didn't do it while there was still time. So assuming that it is a yes, we can move on to action planning. And the first step in the next episode of this podcast series will be a visualization exercise. So I look forward to seeing you then. Bye for now.